Welcome to Nasdaq TradeTalks. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. We're coming to you live from CES in Las Vegas, Nevada, and joining us for our segment, we have Ryan McCormack, Senior Factor and Core Equity Strategist at Invesco. Ryan, it's great to see you no matter where we are around the world. It's interesting, this is our third year covering CES, and our first time here, this was the EV Hall. We had some cool cars that were being showcased. This year, virtually every industry is being represented as it relates to electronification and automotive tech innovation. And I'm super excited for you to be on the show. We've been waiting all day for this because you and I are constantly covering innovation in the Nasdaq-100 index. And my favorite chart that you and Mark from our team share is R&D investment and patents. So this big transformation that we've seen in just 3 years is a result of that R&D and of really focusing on patents. And because that's one of my favorite charts at R&D1, I couldn't wait for you to come on the show because now I'm like, okay, Ryan, this is the result where it's not just a concept, this is what Nasdaq-100 and other Nasdaq-listed companies, they're leveraging each other's solutions and creating their own solutions. It's mind-blowing to see it in person.
It's hard to put it into words, the size, the scope, the scale of all of it, but also it's really exciting to kind of see it in motion. Like you actually get the company stories, and Mark Merricks and I moderated a panel yesterday, and across the board, right, when we were talking about R&D and how it's a hallmark of the Nasdaq-100, all three representatives that were on stage with us talked about how important and how meaningful their R&D policy is. And I think one thing that was really interesting was they all mentioned this notion of human capital, like making sure that they're attracting top talent for them. And in addition, of course, IP, and we're looking at miles of IP right now. But they all had a very similar philosophy in that, like, we need to attract, retain top talent, and we're going to continue to utilize that in our R&D strategy to keep building better, newer, and more exciting products. So it was super eye-opening.
It really is, and that's why sometimes, not Nasdaq-100 specific, but like when you hear about cuts in the workforce, you see stocks move higher, but when you see increases in R&D spend, it moves stocks lower, and it's just like that investment is what drives growth. We see in the numbers, we see in the index, that's why it's been a solid outperformer.
Yes, and we talk about, it's a long-term investment. I feel like every time we bring up R&D, we have to almost put that caveat in that, this is multi-years, 3, 5, 10 years down the road, where they see kind of things going. And again, on this panel, all of them took a very long-term view. It wasn't like the notion, right, we're going to throw money at a problem and we're just going to build something, right? No, this is kind of where the future is going. We're going to make sure that the infrastructure is built for whenever that time comes when, the light switch gets turned, they're going to be there to basically capture that.
It's interesting. We had the global lead of automotive and mobility from BCG on, the consulting group, and he was saying, usually it's 60 months from the automotive perspective, from concept to production. Now it's happening in 24 months. You have to be on board and make sure that you're leveraging these emerging leading technologies. You won't be effective in the supply chain, as an example.
And it's across everywhere. I mean, we were talking to Ravi yesterday from Synopsys, right? And he kind of referenced Moore's Law, which was, you're looking at the rate in which, we're kind of advancing AI capabilities. At one time I think it was doubling every 18 months. That's now truncated to doubling every 4 months. So he's saying everything is just getting compressed in terms of the amount of power that they have, but at the same time he really framed it in this long-term perspective where, even though the knowledge and the ability gets truncated, at the same time it still is a very long-term view and looking years down the road. It's just fascinating.
But see what's interesting too, when we think about how fast to be competitive in this landscape, you want to go to market, whether it's internal, external facing products, but then you start thinking about Nasdaq-100 and other Nasdaq-listed cyber companies, right? Because you have, moving to the cloud and how quick you need to execute and the exposure there. So now you have cyber coming into the conversation as well. I mean, so when we think about, it's a tech-heavy index, I'm looking around and I'm seeing a lot more than what you consider a tech company. So even when you think about the Nasdaq-100 more holistically, that industry shift could occur as well, where perhaps you're not labeled a tech company. Look at industrial companies.
I was going to say industrials for sure, right? I mean, you look no further than right down the hall. You have a number of the leading construction and industrial companies. I mean, certainly healthcare. We talk about that all the time. I mean, the technology that's powering some of these healthcare innovations. I mean, it's pretty much here. And so it's become ubiquitous where tech is powering all these different industries and making it more efficient, but through the lens of the Nasdaq-100, it's those that are kind of building the tech and those that are embracing it. So I think it's a really healthy balance of both, and certainly growth oriented in all the things that we talk about, but ultimately it's those that are building the tech and those that are embracing
And I'm glad you brought up health tech, because again, the first year we were here, and again, only 2023, it's not like it was a decade ago.
Yeah.
Health tech was part of the EV hall. They had like smaller space in one of the corners there. It's all automotive or industrial in here now, and they have a bigger section, I think, at the Venetian.
Yes.
This is how fast. So when you talk about, from 60 months of production to 24 months, or the evolution of technology every 4 months via 4 times as quick via Moore's law, this is it happening in real time. I mean, just year over year, if you look at pictures from 2024 to where we are now, I'm really. It's interesting, when we came in 2023, where the metaverse content was in a different area of the convention center, obviously that was buzzing, right? But now I would say this is like the busiest area of the convention center that I've seen.
Yeah, it's packed. It's like we were over checking out the health tech, which is super interesting, and all integration with wearables, and from top to bottom. Anything you can think of from health tech. They're covering.
That's why I couldn't wait to get you on the show, because I'm like, your charts, this is it.
Yes,
your R&D investments are actually happening, and we're seeing it practically applied. Appreciate the insight as always, Ryan. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks, and thanks for joining me from CES. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.